in our previous conversation, you mentioned that responsible innovation, the field, started about 10 years ago. But some people say, a colleague of yours says much earlier, but let's just say it's from 10 years ago.
Okay.
I'm wondering what triggered the shift, because you said that it first started as a national funding scheme, so in your case, Dutch government, and then you moved to a EU-scaled project called Horizon 2020, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So what actually pushed the change to actually set up a program as such, or programs called Responsible Innovation?
Yes, I don't think people agree on this. So this is my opinion, and I'm perfectly willing to share it, but don't expect everyone to share it. I think, first let me correct you. You make it sound like it's a Dutch invention that now conquers the world. That's certainly not the case. Responsible research and innovation builds on trends that have been going on at least since the 60s and the 70s. And trends like disciplines like risk assessment or technology assessment or environmental impact assessments or medical ethics. These are all little streams that kind of came together in a river that we now call responsible research and innovation. And I think the label started to appear some 10, 15 years ago, mostly in some parts of America and some parts of Western Europe. And I would say that probably in the United Kingdom and the Netherlands and maybe some Scandinavian countries, it kind of rooted early and also acquired a form, let's say, in the form of financial funding schemes, and that always helps a lot. If the government throws in its weight and says there's money for people who contribute to this common endeavor, then that's really a big decisive stimulus. And especially if it happens on a larger level, as in our case, the European Union, which embraced it. I think probably you can't disconnect it from the financial crisis from 2008. Which had as a consequence that investments in technology innovation were at risk of dropping radically because the market had other concerns. And what you saw, I think both in America and in the European Union, is that these governments stepped in and said, okay, we are going to fund innovation with essentially taxpayers' money. Now, this is a rather direct political connection. And then if you say the taxpayer has to pay for the new technology, then of course the taxpayer also wants to have some say about what is going to be developed. So where in a pure market system, the entrepreneur decides at his or her own peril what people want. When there's more public funding involved, you can have a democratic debate or a democratic decision procedure to say, okay, what do we want technology to achieve? So what you saw was that there was a formulation of big societal goals, and it's kind of in the same spirit as the UN has the millennial goals. And what do we want to achieve? And of course, no hunger and no malaria on the list, but there's maybe also on the list a good functioning democracy, and can digital technology help us there? Or maybe these are aging societies. So how can we develop technology that enables aging people to stay at home longer and not to have to go into a care home? Or we are worried about climate change. So does anyone have good ideas for a circular economy? If so, please knock on our door and we have money for you. So basically, is what you get is we want innovation to serve societal goals. And it's politics and it's the society that sets in agenda, adds money to the formula and says, okay, anyone who can help further this agenda is welcome. So I think that financial crisis weirdly provided a kind of stimulus. And for a while, I was worried that when the memory of the crisis would fade, also the energy behind responsible research and innovation would fade. You don't see that happening. So I think the crisis was maybe the trigger, but it was not the underlying cause. I think the underlying cause essentially is that everyone now realizes two things: that our lives are shaped by science and technology to a large extent. That's one thing. And the second thing is that if we're not careful, that this is not always beneficial.